Tēnei mea te Rangatahi. So yes, welcome to this Rangatahi session. And we don't have very much time, so I'm going to stop taking up this precious time. And we're going to flick into our first kai kōrero. So we've got three rōpū who are each going to have a wee kōrero, talk about their kaupapa themselves, their passions, and then we're going to move into some pātai. So if you have any pātai that come up during the session, just chuck them straight in the chat. And if it's a really important, like if you really stand by your question, then write capital letters important and then your question. That way we can make sure it gets answered. Nō reira, tuatahi ka huri atu ki tōku tuakana, ki a koe e Haylee, kei Toi Tangata Haylee in mahi ana, kioi anō, mākui waiho mana, hei whakapuaki I ona waka o na maunga ahara nei nō reira. Haylee, tēnei te mihi ki a koe, and I'm going to pass it over to you. Kā koe mai anō?
Kia ora.
Kia ora rāhiri o tira koutou e whakarongo mai ana. Ko Haylee Koroi tōku ingoa, ko huri a te maunga, ko huri a te awa tina no te waka, ko te riohina te malai, ko te riohina te hapu, ko Ngāpuhi o Te Rarawa, ko Ngati Kahu, anō hoki o Pū-a-ngā-Maara.
Should I have introduced myself?
Because of the kind of time constraints,
Yeah,
but
no,
I work for a public
sweet.
health organisation called Toi Tangata, and I came into the Kai and nutrition space formally in July of last year as Kaiwhare nutrition and training. So over that time I've been spending a lot of time trying to make sense of what nutrition is for us as Māori, and I've been thinking a lot alongside my partner Hannah Burgess, and a kōrero of some of my own tuakana, Rera Whamakiha, Jessica Hutchings, Leah Penniman, and other amazing Indigenous thinkers and practitioners. In a simple sense, I suppose, nutrition is the idea of seeking wellness through kai. But what is wellness and what is kai? So I think wellness, according to Western science, is premised on dissecting and reducing our relations down to the individual. So the individual is like the central locus of power and free will. Individuals and their well-being are isolated from their relations, their whānau, their communities, their environment, even their tipuna and their mokopuna. Not only that, Western science defined wellness is based on the continuity or premise on the continuity of colonial systems of power, which necessitate the exploitation of our taiao and our marginalized groups. This kind of reductionist view of the world is also mirrored in terms of how Western science makes sense of nutrition. So it takes kai and it dissects it and reduces it down to its physical components of like fats, carbohydrates, proteins, and then quantifies wellness accordingly. So wellness becomes like this formula that we just have to follow in order to be well, but requires it doesn't actually require us to be in relation. For Māori, however, when we conceptualize wellness through whakapapa and whanaungatanga, our view expands outward. Our view is expanded rather than reduced. And here we can understand whakapapa as our many relations, the layering of relations, human and more than human, through time and space. And we understand whanaungatanga as this notion of being in right relation. So for us, the locus of power or mana sits beyond us in our whakapapa, with our tuakana, te taiao, atua, the communities we surround ourselves with, our tipuna, our mokopuna. And similarly, when we want to understand nutrition, we have to expand our view outwards. We strive to be in a relation and to know intimately the layers of whanaunga that contribute to the emergence of kai within our world. So we understand that in order for us to be well, the kai itself must be well. And we understand for the kai to be well, the soil must be well. And for the soil to be well, the wider ecosystem must also be well. So our wellness as Teina is actually dependent on these many layers of whakapapa also being well. In like a paradoxal
kind of way, this makes me excited because I see this deep vision of wellness that our tupuna hold for us. That's almost like unfathomable to think of all these layers being well, and to like imagine the joy and the playfulness and the rest and the generosity that kind of exists in that vision. And in the same instance, it's kind of disheartening because I know that the vision that these systems of power have for us sometimes don't include us at all. Like we're not even a part of that vision. And I just wanted to speak really briefly to how I've been making sense of some of these layers in the last year. Also acknowledging that there are many, many layers and I won't be able to touch on all of them. So in 2021, my partner and I were given the opportunity to live in Kokatahi, in Hokitika on the west coast of Te Waipounamu. And we were lucky to live on the edge of a glacial lake called Lake Kangere. And from our whare, you could see Tūwharetoa in the east, and Te Taumata o Uekanuku in the west, and Ka Tiritiri o Te Moana, the Southern Alps in the south. And at night, when it was really quiet, you could hear the Arahura River flowing on the other side of the mountains. We were living and surrounded by pristine native forest. In the 7 months we lived there, we walked through the ngahere almost every day. The local Ako and ngahere were our closest relations, not only because we were physically very isolated, 20 minutes from the township, and then 45 minutes from the biggest town on the west coast, which is Greymouth, but because we were in the middle of a lockdown. So we met the mahoi on our driveway when we walked under it and could smell the beautiful scent of its flowers. And we discovered the kamahi when the canopy turned orange-white during its flowering season. They were kind of like calling us to notice them, which is what they do for pollinators. And I suppose we're no different from other pollinators in that sense. And amongst meeting these Ako, we discovered a variety of edible native plants. Piko piko, horopito, hakeke, which is the wore mushroom, and we dried and pickled and substituted them into our meals. And we also started a garden in the backyard and grew a whole bunch of non-native kai. I realized that in and under the canopy of these kahikatea and rimu and mahoi that we got to be in a relation with every day, that these are actually the first Māora of Aotearoa, our ngahere ko te Māora o tāne tēnā. But what was heartbreaking, however, was the striking delineation that marks the very bottom of Te Taumata o Uekanuku and the neighboring farms. So from the plane window when you fly over, you look down and there's a very clear straight line from where the bottom of the maunga ends and then the neighboring farm begins. And it almost looks like a museum exhibition as you look down through the glass, like it's an artifact on display, this like small, pristine, like piece of native bush. And this view is not entirely inaccurate. If we look throughout Aotearoa, we have kauri dieback, the historic and ongoing felling of our native forests to make way for intensive farming, the spread of invasive animals and weed species, and the push for fast carbon sequestering pine forests. And our native ecosystems, and in particular our native ngahere, are seriously under threat and are becoming the artifact that you see from the air. It was in this moment, I suppose, that I deeply questioned what it would mean for us as Māori to garden without our native ecosystems intact. My past selves had dissected and reduced my garden from its wider relations. So while my personal garden appeared to be thriving, the wider ecosystem that held us was not well. In closing, I just want to leave with a provocation. What would we see if we were to look outwards to be in relation with the wider native gardens or ecosystems which hold space for our garden plots and the food that we grow? I think this is a vision of wellness through kai that excites me and makes me want to carry on the work that I do. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, o tira koutou ngā kai kōrero te rua, o tira te Pū-a-ngā-Maara. Ai, kia ora koutou.
Oh, tēnā no hoki koe, Haylee. You hit on so many really crucial points for us. Whether we're rangatahi or not, these are the things that we have to be aware of. But one of the things that I really liked and really took away from what you said was that whakaaro about imagining the joy that exists. So this is the current set of circumstances we have, but I think one of the strengths that we have as Māori and as rangatahi is that imagination. So thank you so much for reminding us of that, Ehua. Nō reira, tēnā rawa atu koe. We're going to hand it straight over to Te Rua. Don't want to waste any time. He uri tēnei no Te Arawa, no Tūwharetoa, no Te Atihaunui-a-Pāpārangi nei hoa. Ka whai. Nō reira, kei a koe te wā.
Tēnā koe rāhiri o sera tēnā rā tātou katoa. Kei te mohi o koutou ko Waiahau, no hea hau. Hei tāpiri ki e rā kōrero. Kei te whare Wānanga o Waikato hau I tēnei wā. At the University of Waikato, just completing my degree in environmental planning. And on the side also working for Te Arawa Lakes Trust, doing their resource consents, as well as parakore, working with Harina and looking after the Te Arawa region. I'll just get straight into it. I've got a presentation. I'll share my slide. So when I was approached to talk today, I was a bit confused or unsure why I was asked, and a bit hesitant, but after some wānanga with myself and wānanga with my partner, I could connect my daily life and my activities, I guess, and who I am as a person to the kaupapa of our wānanga over the next 2 days. And the topic that came to mind was environmental justice. Environmental justice is about fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, age, economic background. And that's what it includes. It's about race and it's about colour, it's about development, about people's income, all that type of stuff. Environmental justice isn't seen a lot here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. A lot of the research that's done on it can be seen overseas and heavily in America. But just to bring it back to Aotearoa into a context here, I'm going to talk about a few places in Rotorua that I see as environmental justice. You might be thinking, how does environmental justice link to rangatahi or link to our soil and our kai? But just as our tuahine Haylee shared earlier, whakapapa comes with layers, and te oranga o te tangata comes from our kai, te oranga o te kai from our soil from the wider environment that it's in. And this is where environmental comes into the picture and the role it plays in our soil and kai health. If you know Rotorua, or if you don't, this is in Ngāpuna. Ngāpuna is based on around the shores of Lake Rotorua, passing the city just before Te Ngai, so just before the airport area. So Lake Rotorua is over here. This is Ngāpuna. This is a Google Maps, and this is the maps from Māori Maps Online. What I wanted to bring up was to show how planning, and I come from a planning background, and how planning is very instrumental to the way our land is used and how we develop our whenua. If we look here, this is Rotorua's wastewater treatment plant. I don't know who thought it would be a great idea to put that right next to our roto. And every year we see overflow from this. It goes into the Pū-a-ngā stream, which makes its way directly into our awa. And over here, this is, so the outlined colours, the dark grey whenua Māori, and where our people currently live and have the title under whenua Māori. And Ngāpuna is a highly industrial zone. So we have our wastewater treatment here. This is all, you can see the timber, this is all milled, timber mills. And here is all industrialized as well with like car wreckers. We also have a recycling centre over here, I think it is. So just to add where this all is, so this whenua is over, this whenua is over here. And it's Pōuri to see this, because amongst all this industrialized area are our people and our Māori people living. And we have a marae over here. There's a few marae in Ngāpuhi. All of this is marae, papakainga, urupa, marae, akura used to be here. And the council has, has purposely put these areas where our people are, and around whenua Māori, because I can't say why, but I guess because just to displace us, put us into places where, where our health and well-being is being jeopardized as opposed to others. This type of development and partialing of whenua would never pass in areas within Rotorua that are a lot more highly developed. And there's another area in Rotorua that has similar stuff. And this is our horo. And again, we have the Rotorua landfill here, which was this block of land. And to no surprise, right around that dump is all whenua Māori. That's where our people live. This is where our marae are. And it's Pōuri. It's Pōuri to see that. And this is two examples of environmental justice here in Aotearoa. The effects from this landfill will last for thousands and thousands of years. And the effects don't just stay in here. It seeps into the neighbouring properties, to the neighbouring whenua where our people are and where our people are growing kai. So this is environmental justice. This is some aspects of the mahi that I get up to, but bringing it closer to home and I guess to my daily life. Although not practicing Māori Kai at the moment, we've just recently moved into another whare. Other projects relating to soil and kai have been around, practicing Māori Kai, practicing composting, and learning from our environment around us, and really just being a scientist of our own Māori Kai. Ka waiho pia ki reira, the time is ticking and don't want to take up all the time. So ka mutu ki reira, ka hoki ki a koe rahiri.
Tēnā nā koe te rua. And I liked your comments at the beginning. I also had that from Haylee too, as a rangatahi adjacent, self-described. But I think one of the beautiful things about, and the things that I'm really excited about, is really hearing that diversity. So tēnā koe te rua, with your background in studies and environmental planning, I think that's really important that we think about these things, that we think about all of the aspects of kai and soil that affect us. Nō reira, ka mihi ki a koe, and we'll get back to you with some questions. Nō reira, tēnā koe. And we're gonna, again, time is ticking on, never long enough in these sessions, but we're gonna hand it over to our three amazing kai kōrero from Te Pū-a-ngā-Maara. Nō reira, koutou mā, tēnei te mihi kia koutou, tō koutou whakapiri mai. You have the stage. Ngā mihi.
Kia ora te whānau. What up guys, we're Te Pū-a-ngā-Maara. I'll introduce myself first. I'm Ngapera. I'm from my dad's side, I'm from Te Arawa, Ngati Pikiao. And on my mum's side, I'm from Ngati Kahu, Te Rarawa. Sure.
So got it. My name's Rangipo. I'm here to handle Arawa, Te Rarawa, Maniapoto.
Kia ora te whānau, ko Kahu, ko Kahleyn, ko Te Whānau,
Kia whānau. So we're a collective of rangatahi from South Auckland that hail across three marae, Tūnuku Kokiri marae, Makaurau marae, and Ihumata and Maniapoto marae, and Rewa. We are a rangatahi led group who work to uncover Indigenous solutions for a sustainable future by using kōrero tuku iho, by bringing kōrero tuku iho to the forefront of our mahi te aki taiao. We do this by on our 4 values, whanaungatanga, mātauranga, kaitiakitanga, and auahatanga, to engage, empower, and educate with other taiao innovators or other communities around Aotearoa to become kaitiaki of their own whenua.
My first pātai is about just the first step, because with Te Pū-a-ngā-Maara, you know, you check out their socials and they're active, they've got their mates, they're doing mahi mara, and it's got energy. So I guess my pātai, and I might view this to Haylee first. For you, what is the first step when it comes to getting rangatahi thinking about or involved in the kai and soil space? What's your advice to our kai whakarongo?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I think just generally speaking, I think if we wanted to start like right where we are, like in our homes or in our local wahi, and thinking about what it means to be in a relation like where we are right now. And because I think in these spaces, people always ask for examples of what to do next, but it's actually by being in whanaungatanga with our taiao or with our community that the roles and that the needs actually emerge, like the needs of the hapuri or the needs of the taiao actually emerge, and that's where we can step into our roles as kaitiaki within our local context. So I suppose for rangatahi, maybe that's a really easy start. And I remember in the very first lockdown, I read a book called Korare, Māori Vegetables by Nick Roskruge, and he talked about a lot of what we identify now as weeds, which were actually green vegetables for our tipuna. And so now I'm like walking around the neighborhood and every lawn is like a potential like gathering spot. So I think when we do things well and when we do things properly, we don't have to convince our rangatahi, because to me, that stuff is really cool because the world turns into a place for us to be in relation. And like, I don't know, maybe I'm just old school or something, but to me, that's exciting, and we don't need to flash it up or dumb it down. Like we can just tuku ngā kōrero the way that our tipuna gave those kōrero to us. So yeah, koira.
And following on from that, you talked about starting with where you are, and te rua ka whakaroa mō mahi ki tō whaitua ake. I think often if you're not already connected to communities, it can be really hard to get involved in kaupapa, whether it's in the kai and soil space or not. Te rua, from your experience, for rangatahi who are wanting to get involved with kaupapa tile in their rohe, do you have any whakaro on how they could just instigate that, just get that going?
Yeah, pātai pai, because it would definitely vary iwi te iwi, rohe to rohe, but I think one easy place to start is amongst your own puna of friends and whānau. I think, yeah, everyone can be quite fortunate to have that one person who is very in tune or very connected to the taiao. And it's just finding that one person and relating it to te reo Māori. It's just like having a pau in your life who loves that stuff and who's passionate about that stuff, and you just follow them, you hang out with them, you go to their kāinga, you help out with whatever they're doing, and from that and being around them, you get exposed to bigger environments and a lot of diverse people and other people, and they can tee up those type of engagements for you. So find that pau.
Yeah, just that whanaungatanga. It's a small world in Te Ao Māori, especially if you're doing this kind of mahi. So also feel free to keep an eye out in the wider session. If there's anyone that you're fangirling, I had Kelly Francis telling me about all the people she's fangirling, do feel free to message them, because this is a space about actually creating motion for this kaupapa. Ka hoki atu kia koutou ki te Pū-a-ngā-Maara, and hopefully we can hear you, because I love you guys so much. For you guys and your kaupapa, how do you get rangatahi there? Is it just by being rangatahi yourself? Do you bribe? Come on, tell us.
So one of my experiences that I've found in Te Pū-a-ngā-Maara is actually just doing kanohi ki te kanohi with the rangatahi and sharing my personal experiences in Te Pū-a-ngā-Maara with rangatahi tend to open them up to the idea of reconnecting with the taiao again. That's one of the ways.
So ko tētahi o ngā kōrero I rangona tātou ia whai hine amaru, ko taua, you know, our rangatahi are our rangatira. And it's a beautiful kōrero. And thinking about the kōrero that Haylee shared and that Te Rua shared, we've got a pretty hectic future ahead of all of us. And so I kind of want to bring it to the point of resiliency, getting our rangatahi resilient and ready. Te roa, aroha mai, Haylee, within your mahi, what do you suggest? How can we support our rangatahi to be resilient, regardless of what the space, but moving forward?
I think we used to run a Wānanga called Mahuri Totara, which depicted, like, I suppose, the stage of growth that a rangatahi is in when they come into the Wānanga. And what we soon realized was you never plant a mahuri on its own. You plant it in the context of te waunui, in the context of the taller trees, which give shade and shelter. So I think first and foremost, resilience is about remembering that we're part of an intergenerational whānau and that none of us need to or should or probably even can be doing or getting through this on our own. And so, yeah, I think mā te mahitahi o era rea ngā katoa, I think, you know, ka whai hua tātou.
He whakaro o te rua?
Kia no tō pātai.
Thinking about moving forward and whether it's in this space or just in general, how, whether it's from your experience or from your mahi, how can we support our rangatahi in just being resilient and ready to take up these huge calls to action?
Yeah, pātai pai. For me personally, I think it's seeing those around me or my pakeke embody that and live that. When you have those examples in your life, yeah, it's easier to know what to work towards, or it's easier to jump on board as well. It's better when people are living what they're saying or living what they want to see in the future, and it's easy to do that. That's my whakaro.
Beautiful, kia ora. And I'm going to pass it again to Te Pū-a-ngā-Maara. So my pātai for you is, what is your vision for the future? Mo te taiao rānei, what's your vision for our taiao in Aotearoa and in your kainga?
Bring back kōrero te kuipo, like knotting of the Kaiwhare and stuff, you know, bringing those old traditional knowledge that are tupuna and that have chosen for many years to bring it back to. For the technology side of things, we just, at the moment, we've been creating QR codes that pop up in Māori Kai, and they give you like little pūrakas or papareras doing this kōrero about the mahinga kai, food forestry and stuff. Also, with the watering system, we haven't really done that, but we've created Te Te Waura, which is a water testing kit that's on the urge of testing soil.
Kia te anō, while everyone is pondering that, tēnei anō te mihi kia tātou, ko whakapiri mai. It's a really crazy busy time, so being able to be in a kaupapa Māori tangata whenua space is a beautiful thing, and really appreciate all of you for coming here. Again, thanking our amazing speakers who we weren't able to do justice today with how much experience and kōrero they have, but let's consider this panel as dipping our toes into the rangatahi space. So for everyone on here and for anyone who listens or watches the recording, which will be on YouTube, koenei hei timatanga ne, and so really encourage everyone to engage with your rangatahi and your kaupapa, to be led by rangatahi and to lead rangatahi, foster those tuakana tēnei relationships, and take away something from today. Nō reira, tēnei anō te mihi.